All right, everybody, that was Abhoria with their song False Idols. Joining us now, below me, is guitarist Vor, and we're having some tech. There he is, Walthrax, who plays the throat in Abhoria. Gentlemen, welcome to Pulse of the Maggots. How you doing today?
Cool, great. Thanks for having us. Happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're chatting to you ahead of the Friday release of your self-titled album. That is going to be coming out via Prosthetic Records. So I know that you guys, both of you, have been around in the like music scene for a little while, played in a bunch of different bands. I'm curious, just kind of how your involvement with each other started, and like how the band kind of shaped and formed, and why you decided to do this project together.
Cool. Yeah, so yeah, we've both been doing a variety of different musical things over the years. And something that had been kind of like clawing at me from the back of my brain was to do something that was more like traditional black metal, the black metal I got into in the late 90s. I'd done some of that with my other band, but it's really shifted into more of a proggy death black thing. So I wanted to get back to the root of that. So that was kind of what the impetus for the band. And I started writing songs that fit that, all just, doing them by myself. Once I finally got everything pulled together, I started hunting for band members. And initially, I'd really hoped to have an actual band all located in Los Angeles. That's where I am. My other band is all over the place. Didn't work out. No luck finding any local peeps. So I kind of started reaching out to my network. I grew up in Denver. That's where the other guy is located. And his name came into my, purview. I was aware of him over the years and just reached out and like, hey, I got this thing going on. You have any interest in joining? And luckily he was down. And it was great because, Walthrax has got a lot of just crazy ideas about vocal stuff. He loves really pushing the envelope more than I even can conceive of. So getting him in was great. And that was it. So we started working on the album because of COVID, have only, I think, jammed twice. So everything was done remotely, but I think it turned out really good, and looking forward to doing more with them in person.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to bring that up at some point in general. Like, obviously now, we're almost 2 years into the pandemic, like, remote sessions and writing and like all of this other long distance stuff that we're doing. I mean, hell, we're all four of us, I believe, are in different spots of the country right now. So it sounded like that was something that you're kind of used to with being apart from your other bands and things like that. But writing and recording a brand new album with a brand new project apart from everybody. What was that like? Challenges, difficulties, or did you just kind of roll into it because you've been used to doing that for a while?
Yeah, I have to say it was easier because of that. I've been doing it for years. When I first came to LA and didn't know anyone, my old band in New York had split. So I just kind of took the Dave Grohl approach and thought I can do a record by myself. And I kind of loved it, honestly, right? I don't have to deal with anyone else. But a couple albums in, it made sense to start bringing in other people. And so, but I was well experienced with that. My other band's drummer lives in Australia. So like all the kinks of working remotely have kind of been worked out, at least from my end. So when we went into this one, I wasn't too concerned. I mean, there's obviously the newness of working with new people, especially like when we started recording, we had never played together. So they were literally just learning the demos I sent, putting their own spin, hopefully not, changing it to a point where I didn't like it anymore. It didn't happen. And then really we were, we did it that way, kind of worked up demos, and it was Shane in Sound and Quartered who recorded it that really pulled it all together, kind of captured everyone's different, I guess, differing visions, rolled them in with mine, and managed to create a cohesive record that at least sounded like we knew what we were doing.
Fuck yeah. Hey, none of us know what we're doing, so if it sounds like you know what you're doing, then there you go.
Right?
Curious, like a small question. What was that first jam session like when you guys played together? Was there like a, fuck, we have a lot of work to do, or was it a natural progression?
A little of both. I think I was pleasantly surprised with how well it came together, because the fact is we learned all the songs, right? And we learned them not in like a jammy way. We learned them for recording. So you had to know them inside and out. So there was a little awkwardness and just like, wow, we're actually standing in the same room playing and kind of looking around it. That was a little bit bizarre, but I think we were all a little shocked about how tight it actually ended up being. Because again, we learned them all the parts. The funniest moment I think for me was we were jamming the last song on the record, Sunless, and I went into the solo and Wally was singing along to the solo because he knew it so well from all the time he'd spent in the studio. So it felt kind of bizarre for like the first time anyone had seen me play it but he knew all the notes. I don't know. It was just kind of a bizarre experience.
I'd imagine so. Corey, I'm going to let you get in because I've been bogarting all the questions so far in this interview.
As is tradition.
Yeah, it happens. So, I get on a roll sometimes, you know?
So far, you have not stolen my question, so I'm happy about that. So you were saying that you set out to create a black metal band that was like the ones that you grew up with, or the ones that you love from the 90s. But Abhoria still has very distinctive, like, modern elements, more modern production, things like that. How do you find the balance of wanting to get back to those roots while also keeping the sound so fresh?
Cool. Yeah, so I guess that's a good question. Not sure how the best to answer it. Like, when I was writing songs for this project, I guess what I really wanted to tap into was, like, this is going to sound so bizarre and esoteric, the feeling I got when I first discovered black metal in the late 90s, right? Mm-hmm. So yes, some of it is just purely stylistic. There's blast beats, there's tremolo picking, there's lots of, like, you know, big dissonant chords and all that stuff. But it's also just the vibe. When you would put those records on, when I did, it hit me in a certain way. So when I was writing riffs, I really just wanted to capture kind of a feel that I got back then. But that said, I didn't want to be a clone of any of the bands that I was into. And, you know, 20 some odd years have gone by since I was first into that. So I can't neglect all the other influences, everything else I've heard over the years. So while I tried to keep it a little bit more stylistically pure and not make it too obviously like black and death metal or something else like that, I wanted to keep it a little more purely black metal. But yeah, I couldn't keep that other stuff out. And I think it works because it allows me to tap into what I love about the scene, but also put my own spin on it.
Definitely. And who would you say are some of both your, like, past influences and your more modern influences on this record?
Oh, sure. So the bands I first got into that really got me into the scene, and it's funny, I specifically credit this Osmo sampler called World Domination 3. Came out in, whatever, 1996, maybe 7. But it had Enslaved, it had the song Glimpsed from their Eld album on there. It had a track from Blizzard Beast by Immortal. That one was one. So those are probably the two of the first that I got into. And then it was all the stuff that was big at that time. Emperor, Mayhem, Satyricon, Odium, all these groups that were doing a lot, you know, primarily in the Norwegian scene. And I was kind of fortunate to get into it at that point because I was just old enough to go see the Milwaukee Metal Fest the year both Emperor and Mayhem played. It was like a big thing too. They were like rival gangs. They couldn't be on the same floor at the same time. So it had that whole thing. But so those were the bands. That was kind of the stuff that drew me into the scene in the first place. More recent bands, I have actually gotten into the atmospheric side of black metal, which I originally wasn't. A band called Auden from Iceland, I think, are fantastic. Also Shrine, they're another Iceland band.
Shrine is great.
Yeah, that Shrine record is amazing. I actually listened to it when I was touring around in Iceland, just on a tour bus, and thought this is absolutely perfect. And I've gotten onto the black and roll stuff. I know none of it's like super new, but like sorry.
We both light up the moment you say black and roll. We're both like, yes!
Yeah, the Sledgist stuff that, I forget the guy's name, who after he left Reed, he started Sledgist. Those records are just absolutely killer. It's like AC/DC, Black Sabbath, black metal. Love all that. So I've been into a lot more of that lately. It really started with like Cold and Trueless back in the day, but so that's been making a lot of time in my playlist recently.
Yeah, Corey and I, anytime that there's a black and roll band that comes up, Midnight, Hell Ripper, Butcher, like any of those bands, just like, it's all the same, but I want it all because it always sounds good. What about, is there, and like, I can pose this also to Walthrax. I know that I see him coming in and out of the green room a little bit. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties, so I don't want him to think that we're ignoring him. I just don't know whether he can hear us completely or not. Yeah, Walthrax, are you there, and can you hear us right now? I don't know if you can. While we're waiting, anything that is maybe that people would be surprised that influenced this record? Like obviously, like old black metal bands and like newer atmospheric and black and roll bands. Is there anything that was in your playlist while you were writing this that maybe will surprise some people, or that you maybe surprised yourself?
Yeah. So I'd say the most the one thing that comes to mind primarily for me, there's a British rock group called the Wild Hearts. I don't know if you're familiar, if
Yep.
anybody out there is.
Yep.
Right. So I've been into them since the 90s. They were one of those that had no success in the US. I discovered. I'm a diehard fan. They're one of my favorite bands of all time. And so stylistically, probably don't hear the influence, but one of their kind of trademarks and Ginger's trademarks is having these kind of extended instrumental sections in the middle. And so when I lay out songs, I tend to think in that way. Like it's a black metal version of a Wild Heart song. So you got kind of these two pieces surrounding this instrumental break that may or may not have anything to do with everything on either side of it. I try to tamp it down a little bit with Abhoria to keep it a little more stylistically in line, but yes, that is a major influence in my writing.
Amazing. We'll send Ginger an email and be like, yo, this is your doing over here, friend.
Dude, if he wants to make a guest spot, I mean, I know he's into the metal thing. He did that record with Shane Embry. I am all about, I will find a place for him on here.
Fuck yeah. Corey, you actually did steal one of my questions earlier. I just let it go. I'm not going to hold it against you. I do have something coming up, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to ask another one.
Oh, no, you go ahead. I feel bad now that I stole your question, so you go for it.
I mean, it's just payback for the amount of questions that I steal from you. So, Vor, you've mentioned, and I've seen in like, press releases, anytime a single is released, anything like that, just looking at Adam Burke's cover art of this album, the tag with this band is dystopian black metal, right? I mean, obviously there are a lot of things in the world right now that can make us feel bad and make us like lose a lot of hope going on, which you've said that there's not a lot of hope on this record. I'm curious what dystopian black metal means to you and how you've like found inspiration to this music to almost soundtrack what's going on in the world right now.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier, like kind of creating that vibe that I got off the early black metal bands, which at that point tended to be very Arctic, between Immortal and Enslaved and everything, right? They're singing about these cold wastelands. And admittedly, I grew up in Colorado. I'm not unfamiliar with that scene, but having lived in New York for many years and now Los Angeles, I think my version of kind of like bleak, grim landscape has changed a little bit. So it's not mountains and snow and everything. It's the city and disparity and all the horrible things that are going on. So I think I kind of channeled that into this vision that I had, I guess, in my head when I was writing these songs. So I didn't necessarily set out to make it a dystopian black metal band. That just happened. I would start writing lyrics. I had this, kind of image in my head. And then when, once we got Adam involved to do the cover art, and I gave him very basic guidelines. I didn't really tell him what we were looking for. He came out with a cover that looked very much like what I was picturing in my mind. So, and I think it's, it's kind of a cathartic way to address the stuff going on. I don't really like pulling too much when it comes to like politics and stuff into the band, but I feel like I can get some of my, anger and discontent with what's going on kind of filtered through this dystopian lens. So that kind of became the basis of our lyrics.
And that was I was going to follow up of being like whether that was on purpose or not. And it sounds like it was just one of those natural things that musicians discover as they're doing their work and be like, oh, okay, I didn't even mean to have a theme here, but here we are.
Yep, that's exactly what happened. It shaped up. It's funny, I was talking to Walthrax about it earlier, and same thing, going into the second one, now we have this it's more of like a concrete vision. We didn't really know we had before, it was there, and now it's like, okay, now we can really zero in on it.
Corey, I'm going to let you have the floor.
Oh, okay. Cool beans. Awesome. So your album is out in just a few days. What is the thing you are most looking forward to unleashing this beast upon the world and, destroying everybody's day with your dystopian black metal or making it better, but depending on perspective.
That's what happens. Yeah, I'll be happy. Dude, I'm just so happy to have this fucking thing out. We have been waiting for so long. We recorded the album. We had another label that we were with, didn't work out. We're off the label. And then COVID hit and everything is delayed and pressing plants are taking forever. It's just feels like this endless thing where like, is this album ever actually going to happen? I mean, there was a point where I was even like, do we just kind of toss that and move on to the next one? Because, I'm always like thinking about the next thing. So that for me, having it out is so meaningful. If people like it, people are into it, that is just a bonus at this point. I'm super proud of it. It's very much what I was hoping it would be. So having it out there in the world and feeling real, not just this idea that's been sitting in my head in a hard drive for a couple of years, that's kind of the all for me.
Awesome. Definitely. And John, you look like you have like this look on your face like you have a follow-up.
That's why I don't play poker, Corey, because I don't have a good poker face. No, I mean, the final question for me, Vor, I guess I probably should ask it first, because that was a nice way to seg into saying that the album comes out this Friday on February 4th via Prosthetic Records, and you should all check it out. But we'll do that again before you leave as well. You know, this is a very bleak record, as, you know, we've talked about, with a lot of things going on in the world that are also very bleak. And again, going back to that, to saying that there's not a whole lot of hope here. And then, I mean, the last track on the album very much is in that way, too. Like, really, really cool, long song that ends the record. I'm curious if there is anything in this world that actually does give you hope. So that you don't, like, you know, you're not just like, well, this is it. Here you go, everybody. Life sucks. Here's this music. Then goodbye. But if there is anything that actually, like, does give you hope and helps you kind of keep going throughout your day.
Well, let's say getting signed to Prosthetic Records, having an album come out, getting invited to Pulse of the Maggots with you guys. There's 3 things to get at least this week. Yeah, I mean, look, it's a dark album. It's a bleak album. It's very much drawn from what I'm seeing all around. But, you know, for fear of kind of destroying all my street cred, I'm not the typical archetype of a black metal guy that just is like depressed and angry and sad all the time. Ultimately, I'm not, right? I want to believe that things can get better. I mean, I'm seeing it here, whether it's COVID or whatever. Like, I feel like there is ultimately some hope for humanity. I'd rather us not end up in this bleak landscape where, like, people are just kind of like killing each other and eating each other and whatever else happens in that world. But so I don't know. I have a lot. And when it comes to dark music like this, I ultimately don't, you know, I don't think of it as particularly negative. Like, when I put on music, whether it's death metal or black metal or whatever, and whether the themes are particularly gruesome or dark and grim, I don't usually come out of it feeling bad. I feel like it's a good way to kind of channel the feelings I have all the time, release them, put them into this other place, escape a little bit, and come out of it hopefully a happier and better person. So yeah, I think there's plenty of reasons to be hopeful. I mean, I would hope everyone out there that digs the record is hopeful that we will do more of them, because I really want to do more of them. So maybe that's the hope we're giving to people. It gives me hope if people dig it.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. Like, artistic expression, right? Just because you're writing a novel about, like, really bad times does not mean that you subscribe to everything is done and whatever else it might be. So Walthrax popped up for just a second. Again, I want to make sure that he knows that we're not ignoring him or anything like that. We know we've just had some technical difficulties here, which, you know, we're looking for his opinion on things as well. We are running up on time. Walthrax, can you hear us out there, or are you still having some technical difficulties? Think he's still having some technical difficulties. So, Corey, I am going to turn it over to you for the final question. The most important question.
That will reestablish all black metal street cred if answered correctly.
Cool. I'm ready.
What is your favorite dinosaur?
Oh, okay. I actually have this answer ready, and I'll tell you why. It is a Triceratops. That is by far my favorite dinosaur. And I'll tell you, this is great. So obviously, when Abhoria becomes the next big metal band, right, which we are clearly,
it's going to happen.
It's going to happen. In Estes, Colorado, it's a mountain town in Colorado. There is an actual cast of a life-size Triceratops skull for sale at a fossil store. It's 10 grand. As soon as we hit that point, I'm driving and picking it up, and it is going in my living room. My wife knows it. It's going to happen. Triceratops.
Oh, that is amazing.
Is that ever going to go on tour with you, or is that strictly a Vor at-home thing?
That'll be it. That will be, yeah, that's great. So
that'll be like your Stonehenge.
It's like the sheep head, or it's the cow head or whatever, right?
Yeah.
No, we're going to have the Triceratops skull. Our roadies will hate us because it's got to weigh like
yeah.
I would volunteer to be a roadie on that show, just to experience the Triceratops skull on stage.
Right? What's more dystopian than a like extinct animal skull like that? That's amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you get to point at it and be like, "We're next, everybody."
That's the thing.
This is your
They won't
future.
remember the songs, they won't remember our name, but they'll remember the band with the Triceratops.
There you go, and your legend spreads.
That's right.
Corey, I've got nothing else. We're running up on time right now.
Oh yeah, we're running out of time. I could keep going forever, but we are running out of time. Oh, sadly.
Vor, it was amazing to have you on. Extend our deepest apologies to Walthrax that we weren't able to connect and chat and everything like that. I did see him popping in and out, but it sounded like we didn't have a good enough connection or whatever internet gremlins were in there. But thank you for your time. Congratulations on the record coming out. Again, everybody, this Friday, February the 4th, Abhoria's self-titled record is coming out via Prosthetic Records. Go listen to it. Go pick it up. Y'all enjoyed the song that we played before the interview, and there's plenty more to come through that one. So, Vor, once again, congratulations, and thanks for coming on the show, my friend.
Cool. Thanks. Appreciate it. It's been blessed.